Hey everyone, it is Sean here at the Brass Cellar, and welcome to a video that talks about accessories. And today's topic is going to focus primarily on the Martin Trumpet Mouthpieces. So you'll see this list here in front of you, which gives you the various different designs that happen throughout the decades. There is one missing off the end here, and I'll show you the cornet version of that. Unfortunately, I don't have a trumpet version. But basically you have from the 1920s through till about the late 1950s displayed in front of you. First thing straight off the bat you might notice is, if I straighten that up a little bit, look at the shank and the lengths of the shank and how they differed throughout the years. Now that's obviously not perfectly straight at the top here, but it does give you a rough representation. Obviously the earlier the model, the shorter the shank was. And that really is because the trumpet design was kind of evolving through here. These ones here would be from around the 1920s, maybe even a little bit earlier. And you'd find these on models like the Martin Dansant, the Martin Troubadour, and the maybe even the Martin Symphonies. So these would be showing up on those models. These ones here, now these are kind of tricky to place because there isn't much available, but I believe these ones here are actually from the Martin Handcraft Standards and maybe even the very early Martin Handcraft Imperials. Pretty basic in design, and they have the throwback with this, it's kind of more angular here, where here's a little bit more circular in the bulbous, and this one's like smaller than this one even. This might even be earlier than later, and then it comes out, or could be vice versa. Yeah, you might find these on the Handcraft Standards. These are definitely from the Martin Handcraft Imperials, and these are kind of like the mid to late 1930s. It's a really distinctive design. They have that double ridge, and they have the engraving at the top here, and just a really distinctive design. This one here, I believe, is from the 40s. This is what's referred to as the Schilke design. You have this long kind of tapering shank, and you've got this unique kind of cup design on here. And then these are basically from the late 1940s right through up until the 60s. Yeah, so that kind of breaks it down. Now, if we want to take a look at this, and I'm not sure if my camera is going to start focusing correctly on this, but I want to talk a bit about each one and some of the design principles on here, but let's see if we can get nice and focused. So the first thing is, when you're identifying one of these mouthpieces, you want to look for, obviously, this contour here with this bulb in the middle. It will say Martin Elkhart just here. The engraving will be here, and if you flip it over, there will usually be a number 8 or a number 9. If you look at this, they tend to be kind of a nice deep cup, very flat rims, very flat across the top. And in this example, the 9 almost seems deeper than the 8, which is unusual. Now this may have been modified. I suspect this may have been modified at some stage, but these are the only two examples that I currently have. So there's the 8 and the 9. Now in comparison, I've got here a Bach 7C mouthpiece, and you can see that the 8 and 9 is quite a bit deeper than this particular mouthpiece. Then we shift on to the standards. Now this particular one, again, you will find the engraving down here on the shank. It's a very light engraving here. It's written around here, and you'll see the number again stamped right under this kind of bulbous section. Obviously they changed the design here. They've made it a little bit more contoured, put a little bit more mass within here. But again, relatively deep cup, and you know, kind of a decent sized throat on there. Again, quite flat rim. Now that one there is actually exactly the same. It's a number 9 also, but you can see that in a raw brass state. And you might be able to see the engraving a little bit better there, but that's the yeah, the engraving again featured there and stamped over there as the number 9. These are great mouthpieces for playing smooth because of that feature. Now we'll go into the Imperials. Again, super flat rim design by today's standards. Really flat rim. It's much smaller throat, you can notice straight away. I don't know if that's going to focus up on there. But a very small throat in comparison. I talked about this design feature here. You've got the double ridges and then this kind of iconic, it just looks really Art Deco, which is exactly what this period was. You've got the mountain L cut here, and then now the number is actually stamped up here. So you've got 8 and 9, and there's probably a few other combinations that I don't have. There might be a 10. In fact, I've got a 10 right here. What am I saying? So here's a number 9. To me, that looks like it's a slightly larger throat. Again, flat, and kind of a deep mouthpiece too. And then the 10 is kind of like, I guess that's their screamer version of the period. This one's a very shallow cup in comparison to the 8 and 9. And you've got like a medium-sized throat on this one. Again, engraving here, number 10 stamped right there. Now moving on that, so these are, again, I say are from like the mid 1930s into the 40s. Then you jump to kind of like the Schilke design, where it's got this very, very distinctive cup profile. And you've got the Martin script. And this particular Martin script, I think if you check the patent designs, it's definitely in the 1940s on this particular logo registration. Not patent, the logos registrations. This is a very distinctive thing, and you'll see these on the, obviously on the Martin committees. This is the same engraving as you'll see on the Martin committees, that kind of distinctive script. Very long shank, and these tend to go in a little bit deeper than the standard pieces. Again, kind of a flatter rim, but it's a little bit more contoured off to the side here. It's not so sharp, so it drops away a little bit nicer. And I would say a medium-sized throat on these ones. I believe these come in other sizes. This is a number 8, but I believe there are other sizes available too. And then you get to kind of like the last design iteration. The second to last. Unfortunately, I don't have any better copies of these ones, but now you've kind of got that, it's a blend between, you know, the previous 30s and then the 40s. So these blended in the 50s. A little bit more mass around this cup. You've got a lot of mass here. The script is the same script as the 1940s. You'll see it here. And then if you turn around, you'll see the number stamped down here. So this one's a number 7. And these are a little bit more comparable to the 7, kind of like the Bach 7 style. And then this one's a number 10. Again, this is harkens back to what I said about, this is like the Screamer version, the number 10. It's a lot shallower. There's a little bit more, you'll notice a little bit more sloping away on the edge of the mouthpiece here versus the earlier models too. And again, there are the number features right there. Now there is one I didn't have an example of for the trumpets, but I do have an example for a cornet. And that's this design here, which is basically from the RMC era. The Wurlitzer RMC. And you'll notice that they've taken away some of the mass in here, and I believe it's similar for the trumpets pieces as well. Kept pretty much the same cup design, but there's a lot less going on here. I don't know whether they're trying to save materials or what. It's got the script on the script around here. And if you turn it over, you've got your little number stamping telling you which the size is. To me, these feel a little bit lighter, and they would have appeared in a box that's something like this. So I was lucky enough to pick up some of these new old stock boxes. And you can see this Wurlitzer design is also the standard design. So actually in these boxes, there's 2 different designs of mouthpieces. One was that more standard piece, and the second was this kind of skeletonized piece. And they would have looked something like that. the Martin logo on here. It's interesting because this is a much earlier Martin logo. I don't know why they kept that versus what they have on the script here. The two logos don't even match. It's kind of interesting, but and there you have it. So basically, these are the different ones throughout the range. Now, in terms of rarity and collectability, so the most common mouthpieces out of these ranges are in fact these ones right. Oh, sorry, it would be these ones here. These tend to go for very little. You'll pick these up. You know, nice versions of these might go around. So this is 2000. This is time of filming May 2019. Nice versions of these might sell in the $50 to $60 range. Ones like this might sell in the 25 to 30 range, as an example. These ones here are starting to gain popularity. Again, they're relatively, they're not that rare, but nice examples are rare. They tend to be quite beaten up. They commonly, the edges of the shanks here will be chipped away if they've seen a lot of heavy use. Excuse me. If you've seen a lot of heavy use, you'll notice a break in here. In fact, this one here is borderline starting to go. In fact, it has head damage here, so it's been hit basically on the receiver. So look out for signs of damage like that. But nice copies of these could go up to $100 US to give you an idea. Or they could be as cheap as $20. It really depends if the person knows what they have. These number 9 mouthpieces from the early handcraft standards, etc., are starting to gain popularity. And just because they're a nice deep cup and they fit a variety of different Martins, and they're starting to getting, again, that'd be a similar price point. I would say probably a fair between 40 and 70 US. These ones from the Dancents in the 1920s, not so sought after because basically people don't play this style anymore. So unless you've got a collector looking for one, you'll probably pick these up relatively cheap, you know, under 40, under 50. Like a kind of rougher example might set you back $20 or $30. Now I've seen some ridiculous prices people are asking, but you know, I try and be very realistic with pricing. Yeah, so those are the different range. The rarest out of these blanks in good condition are quite hard to come by, and they are quite sought after for collectors. You'll probably pay a similar price to these, maybe over $100 for one of these in a really nice condition like this one. This one's gold plated, so you pay a little bit extra on that too. But they were originally, all these were originally in silver plate, or the earlier ones had this matte gold plating. This is off an artist level instrument, so it had a matte gold finish. You don't typically find them in this kind of gold, this bright gold plate. So they typically were silver plated, or they might have been raw brass. Would have been common in the period too, because they weren't concerned about, you know, brass allergies, etc. So you might find them in raw brass too. Obviously, I don't recommend playing on raw brass. You should definitely get them plated if they come like this. This one's just in my collection for an example. Yeah, so there you have it. If you have any questions, want to know a little bit more, did you find this video interesting? Did you want to see more videos like this? I do have other mouthpiece collections I can talk through. I also collect a little bit of the vintage barks, and I also collect a little bit of the LCAS. My LCAS collection is not as impressive as it used to be. I used to have about 30 of those pieces. Now I have a very small collection, but I can talk through some of those too if people are interested. I also have some interesting, I have the Martin Cornet pieces, and I also have some interesting Schilke mouthpieces from much earlier than people are used to. So let me know what you think. Did you find it interesting? Leave a like or a comment. Don't forget to sub if you have not. and share this with your friends who are into vintage instruments and accessories. So until next time, I'm signing off, and thanks very much for joining us today.